Alright, so good day, Bosconias, Live Jesus and Mary with Joy. So welcome, grade 12 Yunes of Mary Help of Christian, to our very first pre-recorded lesson for this subject. Okay, so as you can see on your screens, lesson 1 has something to do with the definition and characteristics of a trend. Okay, so before we proceed to our main discussion, let us take a look first at the lesson objectives of this lesson. So we all know that when we say lesson objectives, these are the goals or these are the competencies that you have to attain and master after discussing everything. Okay, so what is the first lesson objective? So at the end of this lesson, you will be able to differentiate a trend from a fad. Okay, so malalaman nyo ang pinagkaiba ng trend sa fad. Next, at the end of this lesson, you will also be able to explain the process. Okay? The process on how to spot a trend. So, magkakaroon tayo ng trend spotting na tinatawag. Okay? The third one is, at the end of this lesson, you will be able to point out, okay, you will be able to point out the elements that make up a trend. So just like everything, trends also have elements. Okay? And the fourth one is, at the end of this lesson, you will also be able to describe the different characteristics of a trend. So same with the third one. So always remember that a trend also has characteristics. Meron siyang pagkakakilanlan. Okay? Next is, you will also be able to identify causes and consequences. So as you heard and as you glance your eyes on this fifth objective, I'm pretty much sure that you already have an idea the moment that you laid your eyes on these terms, causes and consequences. Okay, so yun yung ating mga lesson objectives. So punta na tayo sa ating lesson. So ano nga ba ibig sabihin ng trend? Okay, so when we say trend, so the word trend came from the Middle English word trenden, meaning to roll about, to revolve, or to turn. Okay, so dito pa lang sa etymology ng salitang trend, malalaman natin na ever since the Middle Ages, no, as early and as far as Middle Age, meron ng trend. Okay, the word trend already exists. Okay, so ano yung ibig sabihin ng trend? Ibig sabihin to roll about, to revolve, okay, umikot, or to turn, magpasalin-salin. Okay, so on a more technical definition, according to Brannon in 2000, a trend is a look that, open and close parenthesis, has the appeal of newness because it has been missing or scarce in the marketplace. So ibig sabihin, no, according to Brannon, dinefine niya yung word na trend as a newness. Okay? A look of something new. Ibig sabihin bago. Okay? Bakit siya sinabing bago? Kasi sabi nga dito, it has been missing, or if not entirely missing, scarce in the marketplace. And when we say scarce, konti, limited. Okay? And of course, when we say marketplace, ito yung overall market. Okay? So that is what do we mean by trend. So in other words, no, ang Tagalog ng trend, so generally speaking, ang Tagalog ng trend is uso. Okay? So uso. So again, the word trend came from the Middle English word trenden, meaning to roll about, to revolve, or to turn. Okay? And it has the appeal of newness. Okay? Newness. Makabago. Okay? Because it has been missing or scarce in the marketplace. Okay? So moving on. So according to the text, a trend is basically a pattern or conceptualized idea that has the prospect of providing or having a continuing influence for a longer period of time, due to its increasing and sustained presence and effect or even demand among its consumers in the case of a product. Okay? So, according here, no, a trend is a pattern. Ibig sabihin, may sinusundan siyang system, may sinusundan siyang process. Okay? Bago mauso ang isang bagay, hindi siya agad-agad magbo-boom. Okay? So it undergoes a series of process and it follows a pattern. Okay? So a trend is also a conceptualized idea. Pag sinabi natin conceptualized idea, pinag-isipang mabuti. Okay? Pinag-isipan ng malalim. Kaya nga sinabi natin conceptualized idea, hindi lang siya basta-basta umusbong. It doesn't just easily sprout. It doesn't just easily come out of nowhere. Okay? So, kaya nga kung mapapansin nyo, ang daming uso sa panahon ngayon. Okay? So, furthermore, according to this text, a trend has a continuing influence for a longer period of time. So, ano ibig sabihin yan? So, pag sinabi nating trend, it lasts for a longer period of time. Hindi siya for short time. Okay? It has a continuing influence for a longer period of time. So, ibig sabihin, marami siyang nai-impluwensyahang tao. Hindi lang isang grupo ng tao or hindi lang isang particular society. Okay? It touches almost everyone. Okay? Next, what are the examples of trends? Meron tayong mga gadgets, yan, teleseries, social networking sites, social advocacies, drone technology, denim jeans, business processing outsourcing or tinatawag nating BPO. So in a more generic term, ito yung mga nagtatrabaho sa call center agencies or call center companies. Okay? And online ticketing. And okay, ito yung pinaka-trend ngayon na ngayong pandemic, cashless transactions. Okay? So, magbigay nga tayo ng isang example ng trend when it comes to gadgets. Of course, the very popular, the iPhone models, no? Hindi siya nawawala sa uso. Okay? So, kay mayaman, kay middle class, kay mahirap, may iPhone. Regardless of model and newness or ano tawag dito? Newness nga. Okay? So, next is teleserye. Okay? So, part of the Filipino traits, no, part of our Filipino traits is fond of watching teleseries. So ano yung usong teleserye ngayon? Ay ano, Probinsyano ni Coco Martin. Okay? So of course, social networking sites such as, of course, the most popular one, Facebook. Okay? So sa panahon ngayon, ultimo aso may Facebook. Ultimo infant may Facebook account. Okay? Pero it doesn't necessarily mean na they are managing those accounts. Okay? So meron nagmamanage na mas capable. Okay? So ano pang social networking site na ginagamit natin? YouTube. Okay? Instagram and Twitter. Okay? So ito, social advocacy such as climate change. Okay? So people who are advocating about climate change are touching every people in the world. Okay, why? Because climate change is a global concern. Ibig sabihin, lahat tayo is apektado. Okay? Ito, alam niyo na to, drone technology, right? So, most film productions are incorporating drone technology on their products, on their production. Okay, so kung before, may camera ka lang, meron kang sasabihin na nating mic, okay? So pwede ka na makagawa ng pelikula, pwede ka na makapag-shoot ng isang video. Pero ngayon iba na. Okay? So ito denim jeans, hindi ito mawawala, no, sa pagkauso. So historically speaking, in the history of America as early as the 18 or the late 1800s, meron ng denim jeans. or denim jeans. Okay, at sino mga unang nakapagsuot ng denim jeans? Yung mga mahihirap sa Amerika. Okay? So, when the Americans came here to benevolent assimilating our country, they introduced products, a lot of products in particular. And one of them is denim jeans. Okay? So ito ang sinasabi ko kanina, business processing outsourcing or yung generic term is call center companies. Okay? So online ticketing, ayan. So prior to the pandemic or during the pre-pandemic era, actually online ticketing is already a trend. Okay? Pero hindi lang siya ganun ka spread. Okay? But now that we are in a pandemic, so online ticketing, online booking are what? Are trend or are trending. Okay? And of course, cashless transactions. Okay? So kung meron kayong Paymaya, meron kayong GCash, or gumagamit kayo ng debit card or credit card for purchasing anything, no? So yan, cashless transactions. Okay? So again, these are some of the many examples of a trend. Okay? So next, what are the characteristics of trends? So pag sinabi natin characteristics, ano ba ang bumubuo? Okay, ano ba ang bumubuo? Ano ba ang mga particular na bagay na bumubuo sa isang trend? Okay? So number one is micro trend. So when we say micro, it is literally small lang. Okay, small trends. Okay? So when we say micro trends, little things that happen all around us all the time, the tiny shifts that occur in everything from clothes we wear and the snacks we eat to the way play and love are micro trends. So we will dig deeper on this one, no? So these trends happen right now and are outright observable. So ibig sabihin, no, pag sinabi nating micro trends, ito yung mga mabilisang trends na umusbong. Okay? Nangyayari sa ngayon. No? And nakikita agad siya. Okay? Outright observable. An example nito, so TikTok. Yan, ng TikTok. No? So during the premature stages of the pandemic, specifically last year, no? So nung nag-declare na community quarantine, so out of boredom, people found ways to fight or to kill time. And one of those things that they found is TikTok. Yan. So itong example lang microtrend. Okay, TikTok. Bakit? Kasi nangyayari siya ngayon and lahat nakakakita. Okay? Parang halos lahat may TikTok account eh. So yan. So next, microtrends are synonymous with fads. So mamaya malalaman nyo kung ano yung fads. Pero bibigyan ko na kayo ng idea. No? So pag sinabi nating microtrends, aside from it happens right here and right now and are outright observable, they don't last long. They don't usually last long. Okay? Next, they offer a glimpse of the future through the clues they possess. So, ibig sabihin, no, pag sinabi nating microtrends, one of its characteristics is it it gives us a glimpse of what the future would look like through the clues that they possess. So, yeah, katulad niyan, TikTok, no? So, ano kaya ang posibleng maging impact ng TikTok sa mga tao in the near future as they continue use it and as the developer continues to develop it. Okay? So yun yung sinasabi nating microtrend. Okay, so pag sinabi nating microtrend, ito yung mga maliliit na uso. So another thing that you should bear in mind when you say microtrends or when you encounter microtrends is there are only limited people or there are only a particular group of people who are affected by these microtrends. So ibig sabihin, no, hindi siya pangkalahatan. Iilan pa lang ang gumagawa. Okay, kaya nga siya tinawag na microtrend kasi maliit lang. Okay? So anong example ng microtrends? Ayan, smartphone apps, games which are dependent on the capabilities of a smartphone. Okay? So ano pa example na microtrend? Ayan, so Mobile Legends, ito yung Valorant, no? Ano pa Call of Duty, Excuse me, yan, TikTok nga, no? So yan ang mga example ng microtrend. So, hindi ibig sabihin na uso ngayon is uso pa rin siya bukas or uso pa rin siya ng matagal na panahon. Okay, so yun yung sinasabi nating microtrend. So pwede siyang uso lang ngayon, pero bukas hindi na. Pero pwede ding uso pa rin siya. Okay, it depends, no? It depends. Okay? So next, when we say microtrend or macro trends, ito naman mas malaki na. Okay, mas malaki na siya kaysa kay micro. Okay? So pag sinabi nating macro trends, these are the aggregated micro trends or more sweeping changes that are affecting society. So ibig sabihin ng aggregated micro trends, ibig sabihin ito na yung pinalala. Okay? Literal na pinalalang mga micro trends. Ibig sabihin, para siyang COVID. Okay, para siyang COVID, nahawaan na yung mga ibang hindi nakikiuso. Okay, ibig sabihin nagkaroon na ng community transmission. Meron ng naging contagious na yung microtrend. Okay? So macro trends, again, we will say macro trends, these are the aggregated micro trends or more sweeping changes that are affecting society. So unlike micro trends, and as I said earlier, micro trends are only affecting a certain group of people. But on macro trends, it is different. Okay, it is now the opposite. Because macro trends are the leveled, okay? Macro trends are the leveled up versions of micro trends. Okay? Kasi nga, sabi nga dito, macro trends are already affecting the society. Okay? So ano example nito? Kaya yun nga, COVID. Yan, sinabi ko na ngayon na COVID, no? So they provide major changes that are perceptible at the society level for a longer period. Okay? So macro trends, so ito, i-explicate ko lang ng konti, no? So sabi nga dito, macro trends provide major changes. Okay, so meron na talagang matinding pagbabago. And hindi lang siya matinding pagbabago. Okay? These major changes are perceptible. Ibig sabihin nakikita. Okay, nakikita, nararamdaman, naririnig, nararamdaman. Okay? At the societal level for a longer period. So tumatagal siya. Okay? Ito na yung talagang tumatagal na. Okay? So these are more stable than microtrends. Kasi nga, bakit mas stable si macrotrends? Kasi nga sabi ko nga kanina, si microtrends, pwede siyang uso ngayon, pero hindi ibig sabihin na uso siya bukas. Okay? Pero si macrotrends, ito na yung talagang masasabi mo na magiging trending siya for a longer period of time. Bakit? Because of certain circumstances. Okay? Certain circumstances that feed these macro trends. Okay? Kaya nga siya tinawag na more stable. Okay? So ano ang example ng macro trends? Okay, varying smartphone brands, iPhones versus Android. So battle for popularity of the smartphone. So bakit naging example si iPhone versus Android phones? Kasi nga we all know that ever since the conception of iPhones and ever since the genesis of iPhones, naging patok naman talaga siya. So so from 2007 up to the present time, tinatangkilik pa rin si iPhone. And majority of the people worldwide prefer iPhones over Android phones. Okay? So yan, so macro trend. So you see from 2007 until now, si iPhone is trending. And it really defined the level of society. No, kasi nga pag sinabing iPhone, no, it is synonymous to the word or to the adjective rich. Bakit? Kasi nga only the rich people or only the rich and middle income earners are capable of affording iPhones. No? So yeah, so naging measuring stick ng pagiging mayaman mo or mahirap. Okay? So yan. So next is megatrend. So as you can see, no, there's a pattern, no? Palaki ng palaki yung trends from micro to macro now to megatrends. Okay? So pag sinabi nating mega, ito na yung ano talaga, no? Super duper large, super duper big. Okay? So ito yung mga macro trends that have grown up and moved out. So ibig sabihin, para siyang virus. Okay? Para siyang virus. So hindi siya na-contain sa isang lugar, kaya siya lumaganap. Okay? So micro or mega trends are big and bold and affect the lives of great swaths of the human race. So ibig sabihin, ito na talaga yung nakakaapekto sa karamihan ng tao. Okay, regardless of your gender, regardless of your age, regardless of the level of society where you belong. So kung mahirap ka, kung mayaman, kung middle class ka, apektado ka na ng megatrends. Okay? So ito na nga yun nga, sabi nga, no, megatrends are from macro trends that have grown up and moved out. Okay? So next, they can last for decades and are so pervasive as to be generally known. So ibig sabihin, no, they can define an era. Okay? Mega trends can already define an era. Okay? So pwede din natin maging example dito is si iPhone. Okay? Bakit? Kasi si iPhone, um, ano na siya over a decade old na si iPhone di ba? So from 2007 to 2017, ano na ngayon, 2021, so 18, 19, 20, 20, so 14 years ago na. Simula nung unang lumabas ang first iPhone model. Okay? So, and people of all walks of life, no, know what an iPhone is. Okay? What an iPhone is. So yung sinasabi nating so pervasive as to be generally known. So ibig sabihin, yun nga, so pervasive, in other words, no, they are really evident. Okay? They are really conspicuous. Okay? Alam ng lahat. Okay? So megatrends are obvious and evident. Okay? So what are some of the examples of megatrends? So yeah, smartphones which are dependent on the internet. So smartphones are widely used by almost all people in the world. So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, no? So yan, smartphones. Okay, so ano pa pwede natin maging example dito? Hindi natin pwede maging example si COVID. Bakit? Kasi hindi pa naman 10 taon na bumagal si COVID. No, generally speaking, over a year pa lang naman, no? Over a year pa lang naman si COVID. And hopefully, hanggang doon lang siya, no? So next is gigatrends. So ito na yung pinakamalaki talaga. Okay? So from macro, micro, mega, and then last is gigatrends. So merong metamorphosis, no? Merong metamorphosis para siyang butterfly. Okay? So pag sinabi nating gigatrends, these are the trends that are so general that they affect most areas of human life or at least more than one aspect of life or more than one industry. So ibig sabihin, pag sinabi natin gigatrends, ito na talaga nakapagpabago hindi lang sa way of life ng isang tao kundi sa lahat ng aspeto ng tao. Okay? So ito yung mga trending na talagang nagbigay ng bagong kahulugan as to how people live their lives. Okay, so these are the trends that really modified how people live their lives. Okay, so anong example nito? Okay, television, yan, gigatrend yan. Bakit natin sinabing television? Kasi from just reading newspaper or from just listening to a radio. So nung dumating si TV, ayan, natuto tayong or hindi, ginamit natin siya to know what is happening in our society. Okay? So if we are bored and we want to be entertained, so anong gagawin natin? Manonood tayo sa TV. Okay? So ano pang example ng gigatrends? Aside from TV, ayan, washing machines. Okay? So lahat, ito, in general, no? every appliances that you have at your homes are examples of gigatrends. Okay? Bakit? Kasi of all your household appliances, each has a specific area of service being done to you or for you. Okay? O yan, ayan, example, washing machine. Kung noon, naglalaba ka gamit ang kamay mo, ngayon, nung simula nung bumili ka ng washing machine, so hindi ka na naglalaba gamit ang kamay mo, hindi mo siya kinukusot. Okay? So, lagay ka na lang ng damit mo sa washing machine, lagyan mo na sabon, Sunrox, Downy, and then, hayaan mo na siya. Okay? Set mo lang yung timer, okay? Set mo lang yung water level, and then, poop, that's it. Okay? Balikan mo na siya pagkatapos. Okay? So, yan. So, gigatrends. Okay, so gigatrends, always remember, usually identifies to define an era. Okay, to define an era. Okay, so kung kanina, sinabi natin na hindi pwede maging example si COVID under megatrend, this time pwede siyang maging example. Okay, pwede siyang maging example ng gigatrends. Bakit? Kasi si COVID, COVID really affected most areas of our lives. Di ba? From our bond with our friends or with our immediate family. No, kung noon, pwede pa tayong, or kung noon, every time we see our friends, we can hug them, we can kiss them on their cheeks or any action, any action that conveys our love to a person. Simula nung dumating si COVID, nagbagong lahat, di ba? So bawal na ang shaking of hands, bawal na ang hugging, okay? So anything that has something to do with close contacts have been forbidden. Okay? So yon. So pwede natin siya maging example si gigatrend dito. And COVID pandemic is defining a certain era on our lives. So anong era yon? Ayan, pandemic era. Okay? So yan, gigatrends. Okay? So those are the characteristics of trends. So again, macro trends, micro trends, megatrends, and gigatrends. Okay? So ito, example ng gigatrend is internet or the World Wide Web, which may be considered as the soul of almost all technology. Okay? So halos lahat siguro ng bahay, ay connected na sa internet. Except of course dun sa mga isolated places or yung mga tinatawag nating far-flung areas, yung mga talagang hindi maabot ng technology. Okay, so now let's move on to the elements that comprise a trend. So what are the elements of a trend? So number of participants, pattern of development, long period of time, cause, and consequences. Okay, so punta tayo sa una, number of participants. So pag sinabi natin elements of a trend as to number of participants, it pertains to people who follow a certain trend which is started by an individual or a group of people. Okay, no? So gaya nga na sinabi ko kanina, during the discussion of characteristics of a trend, dun pa lang sa macro trend, makikita mo na kung sino yung mga taong sumusunod doon sa uso. Okay? Doon pa lang sa macro trend, makikita mo na kung sino yung gumagawa ng uso na yun. Okay? It may be an individual or it may be a group of people. Okay? Pwede yung mga kabataan lang. Pero dito sa group of people, limited lang siya to a certain group of people. Okay? Pero as the trend grows bigger and wider, okay? So, siyempre, lumalaki din yung sakop. Okay? The scope of trend when it comes to people being hooked and affected by it are also getting bigger. Okay? So the group then grows into a community and eventually swells into national and international societies. So yan nga, no? Example natin is yung TikTok. Okay? So nung una pa lang, actually noong bago pa magka-pandemic is naging ano na si TikTok, naging in na sa ibang tao, no? Pero mas nauso lang siya noong nagkaroon na ng pandemic talaga, no? Okay? So number of participants. Okay, so yeah, for example, the prevailing fashion of a period follows what celebrities are wearing or what fashion designers offer. So people often copy the trendsetters and so a new fashion trend develops. Okay? So nauuso lang naman ang isang bagay kapag ka merong isang influencer or tinatawag nating trendsetter ang nagpasimula nito. Okay? So next, elements of a trend when it comes to pattern of development. So this refers to a trend that is formed from a repetitive actions of people. So in a nutshell, pag sinabi nating pattern of development, a trend is formed from repetitive actions of certain individuals. Okay? So in other words, no, in layman's term, a pattern or a trend is contagious. Okay? Lalo na kapag ka yung tao na na-influence, na sumunod, okay, to patronize that particular trend, found it really interesting and found it according to his or her likings. Okay? Naging swak siya sa gusto niya. Okay? For example, from the simple act of taking a selfie has now become a cultural trend. Diba? So noon, hindi pa talaga uso selfie. Ilan na ang gumagawa niyan. Pero nung paulit-ulit kasing ginagawa yan, so na-adapt yung people. Okay, na-adapt ng ibang tao yung behavior ng mga gumagawa ng selfie na yon hanggang sa nakahawa na sila nakahawa ng iba pa. Okay? So saan tayo mostly nakakakita ng mga tao nagsa-selfie? Ayan, no? Sa tourist spots, okay? In a restaurant, in a hotel lobby, beside a movie poster in a cinema, in a concert hall, at an event, among others. Okay? So noon nga, no, noon nung hindi pa uso ang mga smartphones, kapag kakakain ka sa restaurant, hindi mo muna pipicturean yung pagkain mo tapos ipopost mo sa My Day mo, di ba? Pero ngayon, usong-uso na yan. Okay? Pattern of development. So again, pag sinabi natin pattern of development, a trend follows a specific system. Okay? Specific system or specific pattern of development. Okay? So ang pinakatatandaan no pagdating dito sa elemento ng trend na to is behavior. Okay, behavior ng tao. Okay? So next, elements of trend as to long period of time. So it is one of the crucial elements of a trend, which means that a trend has to have a long time frame, sometimes running for decades. A trend may experience some ups and downs in popularity. It may fade away or it may recur. Okay, so ibig sabihin, no, kagaya nga na sinasabi ko pa kanina, okay, ang isang trend ay pwedeng uso ngayong araw na to, pero hindi ibig sabihin na uso pa rin siya bukas. Okay? Pero pwede yung isang trend is uso ngayon at uso pa rin siya bukas, pero hindi na siya uso sa susunod na araw. Okay? It depends. Okay? So, how does it depend? Okay? So, the longevity of a trend depends as to how many people is doing that kind of trend. Okay? The longevity of the trend depends as to how motivated are people to do that trend. Okay? So motivated, how they are engrossed, how they are into doing the trend. So kapag mawawala lang naman sa uso or mawawala lang naman ng isang trend kapag paunti-unti nakikita na nung tao na it is becoming less and less significant to their lives. Or in layman's term, nawawala na ng gana. Okay? So yun lang naman siya nawawala sa uso. Pero, pero pwede siyang bumalik. Okay, pwedeng bumalik yung trend na yun. Ayun nga, katulad nga ng TikTok, noon pa lang, prior to the pandemic, naging ano na siya, naging in for a certain group of people. Okay? Until such time na kumunti ang gumagamit, until almost na nawala na siya sa limelight. Pero nung dumating si pandemic, dumating si COVID, ayun, nanumbalik siya sa pagiging trending. Okay? So, example is, ayan. Okay, a good example of this element of trend is the telephone. Ayan. So, as we all know, prior to the advent of cell phones in general, the most common use or the most common use technology when it comes to communicating with someone is telephone. Okay? So telephone naman talaga, di ba? So now dumating sa cellular phone, so medyo na-phase out na paunti-unti, no? Bakit? Kasi si cellphone ay more convenient. Okay? More convenient and more stable. No? Okay? Most stable when it comes to signal reception. And it is wireless. Okay? Unlike pag kay telephone, ano siya, connected siya through wire. Kaya kung nakagamit kayo ng telephone, kung nakagamit kayo ng telephone noon, may times na nagiging static yung signal niya. Okay, yung line. Bakit? Kasi nagkakaroon ng interference. Okay, bakit? Kasi meron tayong tinatawag na line traffic. Okay, maraming gumagamit ng telephone at a certain period of time. Okay? So, sa panahon ngayon, kukunti na lang siguro ang may telephone. Karamihan ng may telephone ngayon ay mga business establishments, no? Okay, so paunti-unti nawawala na sa uso si telephone. Okay? So next, elements of trend, okay, by the means of cause. So pag sinabi natin cause, dahilan. So this refers to the starting point of a trend which can be an idea, a technology, an event, or a person. All trends have beginnings and someone or somebody definitely started it. Okay, so lagi nyo tatandaan, a trend always has a starting point. Okay, and that starting point can be an idea, a technology, an event, or a person. So a good example of this element of trend is the Walkman that that was revolutionized or that revolutionized music playing. So, ewan ko kung familiar kayo kay Walkman, pero ito kasi naabutan ko, no? So, ito yung cassette player, portable cassette player na pwede mong dalhin kung saan. Okay? So, this is used to hear your favorite music. Okay? So, until dumating si cellular phones and until dumating si smartphones, okay, nagkaroon ng DVD players, nagkaroon ng VHS, ng VCD players, ayan. Okay? Cause. Okay? Next is consequences. Always remember when every time that there is a cause, there is a consequence. Or every time that there are causes, then definitely there are consequences. Okay? So pag sinabi natin consequences, this refers to the considerable impact or influence of a trend. Okay? So in general, ano yung naging impact or influence sa behavior ng tao ng particular trend? Okay? So a good example of this element of trend is social networking. Okay? So bakit? So according to the text here, social networking has become an encompassing trend that tends to influence behaviors of online users. With the popularity of smartphones, users began subscribing to various social networking portals which enable them to post activity statuses and photos and even connect with celebrities. Okay? So, yan, no? So, nauso sa social networking. So, itong sa social networking brought about change to the behavior of communicators or in general to the people who use social networking. Okay? So yan, consequences. Next, okay, so punta na tayo sa how to spot trend. So paano nga ba natin lalaman ang isang trend? So meron tayong tatlong stage. Okay? The fringe stage, the trendy stage, and the mainstream stage. So punta tayo dito sa first one, the fringe stage. So ano to? So pag sinabi natin fringe stage, this is the stage where an innovative idea, whether in the form of new product, service, or in other form, develops into the market or become known to the trendiest consumers. So in this stage, entrepreneurial and business firms participate to develop and innovate ideas. So ibig sabihin, pag sinabi natin fringe stage, dito natin nakikita yung pag-boom or yung pag-blossom or yung pag-grow, okay? Pag-grow ng isang trend. So, from an innovative idea, be it a new product, be it a service, or be it in any other form, doon natin nakikita kung ito ba ay magiging uso at kung ito ba ay makakaapekto sa pangkalahatan tao. Okay, kaya siya tinawag na fringe stage. Okay, so this is the premature stage or development, no? The development of a trend. Okay, so in the business spectrum, okay, in the business spectrum, so pag nakikita ng mga businessmen na merong umuusbong, merong nag-grow na pattern of trend, they are going to seize it and develop it into a bigger trend so as to attract customers, so as to attract more, okay, more customers. Okay, so ano ibig sabihin niyan? Okay, bigyan ko kayo ng isang particular example. Marami ngayong local food, maraming yung local restaurants na nag-offer ng different flavors of chicken wings. Okay? So, yung flavor ng chicken wings na yun, hindi nila yon na-conceptualize ng sabay-sabay. Okay? So, merong isang particular movement or idea of a particular businessman na nagpasimula nun. Okay? So, from innovating ideas, no, from innovating ideas such as to what new product that they need to serve to attract more customers. Okay, so from there, no, from that point, nakaisip sila, sige, gawa tayo ng flavor ng chicken wings. So ano kayang pwedeng maging flavor ng chicken wings natin na makaka-attract sa customers, sa mas maraming customer. So isip tayo, sige, pwede yung buffalo, kay ano pa, pwede yung Korean barbecue, pwede yung sisig flavor, pwede yung salted egg flavor. So yan. Okay? So, yun yung sinasabi nating fringe stage. So, nung tinry na nila yun, okay, nung tinry na nila yun sa kanilang customers, at nagustuhan ng customer, so the word will spread. Okay? So, the word from those who had a first-hand experience of trying out those new products will spread it to their friends. Okay? And then so on and so forth. So magiging chain reaction. Okay? So doon na siya ngayon magiging trending. At until such time na yung ibang business firm, okay, until such time na yung ibang entrepreneurs, nakita nila yung trend na yun. So, ang ginawa nila is, inadapt nila yun, but they made some modifications, made some modifications on it. Okay, minodify nila. Okay? So, yan, fringe stage. Next is trendy. So, ito na yung talagang nauso na. Okay, so in this stage, consumer and public awareness of the trend grows as the early adopters participate together with the innovators to increase the perceptibility of the trend. So during this stage, the most fashion-forward brands and retailers assess the viability of the concept. They usually conduct test market researches. Okay, so dito sa trend na to, no? So from fringe stage, no, to trendy stage, dito na talaga lumawak um, yung significance ng isang trend. So in other words, no, marami parami na ng parami yung nakakaalam. Okay? And also during this stage, no, the most entrepreneurs who are adopting or who are incorporating that particular growing trend assess the viability of the said growing trend. Pag sinabi natin viability, they are assessing its survivability. Okay, mabubuhay ba siya? Okay, will this be livable? Okay, and for how long? Okay, so how they will know that? They are usually conducting test market researches. So kung one time nakakain kayo sa McDo or sa any fast food chain and there is a crew who approached you saying na kung pwedeng they could get or they if you could spare a minute of your time to answer this questionnaire. So yun yung tinatawag natin test market researches, no? Okay? So from that, malalaman nila yung viability ng trend na yun. Okay? Doon nila malalaman kung ano yung i-eradicate nila at kung ano yung i-maintain and i-develop nila. Okay? So next is mainstream. So ito na talaga yung umuso. Okay, so pag sinabi natin mainstream, the conservative consumers join the trend. So itong pag sinabi natin conservative consumers, ito yung mga doubters. Okay, ito yung mga doubters in the first place, no? So parang nung panahon ni Kristo, di ba? No, so nung early stages ng proclamation of the word of God by Jesus Christ, a lot of people doubt him. Okay, a lot of people doubt him until such time that Jesus Christ himself are performing miracles. So doon na doon na nag-join, no? Okay, doon na nag-join yung ibang non-believers. Okay, so merong tinatawag tayong shifting of paradigm shift. Okay, natin na sinasabi. Okay, so dito na nagbabago yung isip at yung perception ng tao. Kaya sila sumasali. Okay, so the idea's popularity and acceptance continues to increase. The corporations and company brands exploit the growing demand for that idea. In this stage, the trend becomes a mainstream product or service. When it happens, a number of things can occur. So another example ito is yung Netflix. No? So before, Netflix is just a local film streaming platform. Okay, so nung nagkaroon na ng quarantine, nagkaroon na ng lockdowns all around the world at hindi makapunta sa movie theaters ang mga tao para manood ng movie, so they shifted, okay, to Netflix. So again, when mainstream happens, a number of things can occur, such as, okay, number one, the trend can fade away once majority of the consumers tested the idea or product. They could either reject or accept the idea. If the idea's acceptance or rejection occurred over a short period of time and its appeal was limited to a small number of consumers, the trend is reduced into a fad. So, ibig sabihin, no, under the mainstream stage of spotting a trend, okay, a trend could, it has a possibility to fade away from the limelight once majority of the consumers tested the idea or product and they found it either pleasurable or they are distasted. Okay? So sabi nga dito, no, they could either reject or accept the idea. Okay, depende. Okay, depende kung paano sila na paano sila naapektuhan ng trend na yun. Okay? So, once the idea is accepted or rejected, and it occurred over a short period of time, then the trend is reduced into a fad. Okay, so I hope that you are already gaining an idea as to what we mean by fad. Okay, so mamaya, darating tayo dyan. Okay, so another thing that could happen under the mainstream stage is when consumers buy or support the trend by doing multiple purchases, the trend reaches a plateau level of acceptance and stays at the same level. So if the trend persists or stays for a long period of time, the trend is called a classic. A classic refers to a look or trend that is always present in some form that is appropriate across diverse occasions and accepted by diverging consumer groups. Okay, so sabi nga dito, no? So kapag ka maraming bumili at maraming sumuporta doon sa trending na product na yon or idea, okay? So the trend reaches a plateau level. Ibig sabihin nagiging stagnant siya. Okay, nagiging stagnant. Okay? So if the trend persists or stays for a long period of time, so nagiging ang tawag natin sa trend na yon is classic. Okay, ang tawag natin sa trend na yon ay classic. So pag sinabi nating trend as a form of classic, it refers to a look or trend that is always present. Okay, it is always present regardless of the form, and it is appropriate across diverse occasions and accepted by diverging consumer groups. Okay, and lastly is another possibility is the fragmentation of a trend. A trend fragmentation or microtrend happens when there is a recent development in the trend or a reinvention which leads to fringe stage of a trend. So, ibig sabihin, pag sinabi natin fragmentation, nagkakaroon siya ng portioning. Okay? Parang nanganganak. Okay? Nahahati siya. Okay? It turns into pieces. It turns into a chunk. Okay? So it only happens when there is a recent development in the trend or a reinvention which leads to the fringe stage of a trend. Okay? So those are the processes of how to spot a trend. So punta na tayo ngayon dito sa trends or fad. So ano nga ba pinagkaiba ng trend sa fad? So pag sinabi natin fad, it is also synonymous to the word craze. Okay? So a fad is most of the time used interchangeably with craze as both denote an extreme but short-lived enthusiasm for an object, a practice of a specific behavior, or an activity. So ibig sabihin, no, this is the smallest type of trend that can happen in a particular society, regardless of the level. Okay? So, in a more specific concept, pag sinabi natin FUD, this is just a short-lived trend. Okay? Okay? So, uso lang siya in a short period of time. Okay? So, generally speaking, pero pwede din siyang lumago depending on how people perceive that fad. Okay? So, ano example ng fad? Ito, hula hoop. Okay? Hula hoop, yo-yo, virtual pets, frisbee, Pokemon Go, Hello Kitty, Loombands, Candy Crush app, iPod, Kalyoserye, yan, Petrack, Friendster, Troll Doll, Bucket Challenge, Mannequin Challenge, Gangnam Style, Tamagotchi pets, hoverboards, fidget spinners. Okay? So, ito ang examples ng fad. So, as you can see, from these examples of fad, we can already infer that fads only affect a certain group of individuals or a certain group of people. Okay? So, for example, in hula hoop, not all people in this green grass of earth play hula hoop. Same is true with YOLO. And same is true with everything. Okay? So, not everyone did the Ice Bucket Challenge. Not everyone listened to Gangnam Style song. Not everyone played Candy Crush app. Okay? Not everyone played Tamagotchi Pets. And not everyone is aware of this. Okay, Tamagotchi Pets. Not everyone had watched Kalye. Not everyone had an iPod. Okay, so in other words, no, a fad only affects a fad only affects a certain limited group of people in the society regardless of the level. Okay, regardless of the level of the society they belong with. Okay? So yan. So trend versus fad. So how does a trend differ from a fad? To simply put it, a fad has a definite beginning and a definite end. While a trend has a certain beginning at a certain point in time or history, but it evolves and changes as it continues to grow. So ayan, lahat ng red words summarize the difference between trend and a fad. So again, pag sinabi nating fad, it has a definite beginning and a definite end. Okay, malalaman mo kung kailan siya lang uso, kailan siya tatagal. Okay, and on the other hand, pag sinabi mong trend, it has a certain beginning at a certain point in time or history, and it evolves and changes as it continues to grow, and as it affects a lot of people. Okay? So, yun ang pinagkaiba ng trend sa fad. Ayan. So, this is the table that shows what are the certain categories of fad and trend that make them unique from each other. Okay, so yan, meron tayong under categories, meron tayong tinatag notions of change, behavior, effects, time and nature of growth, and scope and limitations. Okay? So next is causes and consequences. So, gaya nga na sinabi natin kanina, no, during the first part of discussion, every causes has a consequences. And for every consequences, there is causes. Okay? So, what do we mean by cause? So, pag sinabi natin cause, it is a reason for doing something or feeling something. Okay? Something that brings about an effect or a result. So, alam na natin yan, no? And pag sinabi natin consequences, this is what happens as a result of the cause. So, kunyari, so nagtapon ka ng basura sa hindi tamang tapunan, yun ang cause. So, anong consequence? Bumaha sa lugar nyo. Okay? So, the concept of cause and consequence address who or what, or addresses who or what influence events to occur and what the repercussions of those events were. So pag sinabi natin repercussions, these are the results. These are the implications of what or who influenced events to occur. Okay? So, example, so change in oil prices can cause changes in the price of commodities as their consequences, which is basically true. Pag mataas ang presyo ng langis, expect na tataas din ang presyo ng basic commodities such as, ayan, kuryente, pagkain, and everything that depends and relies on fuel. Diba? So, yun that is simply that is to simply put the idea of causes and consequences. So again, pag sinabi natin causes and consequences, for every actions that a certain individual does, there is a effect, there is a result. Okay? So, yon, no? So, to simply put it in the context of trends, no? So, expect na kapag ka may umuuso, may bagay na umuuso, may kaakibat siya ng consequence. Okay? Either be in the form of good consequences or bad consequences or positive or negative consequences. Depende. Okay? The nature of consequences depend on the nature of causes. Lagi nyo tatandaan. Okay? Hindi pwedeng magbunga ang mangga ng santol. Okay? Hindi pwedeng magkaroon ng baha kung walang clogging. At syempre kung walang ulan. Okay? So in other words, no, in the context of trends, okay, in the context of trends, uh, as people engaged and engrossed to a particular trend, okay, which is basically the cause. So the results or the implications of those actions by people patronizing a particular trend depends on how they perceive that said trend. Okay? So, for example, ang causes and consequences is the use of drugs. Okay? Especially in sports, no? If you are aware or if you're not aware, there are a lot of controversies in any particular sports about the use of medications or drugs, no? Or drugs. Bakit? Kasi merong mga athletes na sobra-sobra kung gumamit ng pain reliever and yung ipinagbabawal na steroid. Okay, anyway, steroid is a form of pain reliever din, no? So yun. So from that trend, using steroids or overdosing themselves of steroids or any drugs, so the consequence or the effect is, of course, negative. Okay, masama. Okay? So, yun. Okay? So, yan, that's it. So, thank you for listening, my dear YUMS students of 12 Mary Help of Christians. So I hope you learned something from this pre-recorded lesson as I did everything I could. No? I exerted my very best to explain everything on this pre-recorded lesson before I actually discuss this during our live or synchronous meeting. Okay? So if you have any questions or if you have any questions or clarifications that you want to ask, you can save those things for our live discussions. You might as well jot them down on your notebooks, and then you can ask them once we have our synchronous meeting. Okay? So thank you again for intently listening on my pre-recorded lesson.